In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and it will be broadcasted over the Lunenburg Public Access channel and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. And votes may be taken as a result of those discussions if we have someone else that joins the meeting so that we can have a quorum. Not all items listed, in fact, may be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. With that, I'm going to take attendance of the people that are here. Brendan?
Here.
Mary?
Here.
All right, and Anna Lockwood. So just going over the items on the agenda. So the first one would have been minutes review. We can't review and approve it. The second item would be discussion parcel 4 Leominster Road, see notice of intent. Mike Toohill had sent that to everyone. Did you all have a chance to review it, Brandon and Mary?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Why don't we start going around? Brandon, why don't you talk?
Great. So, and maybe it'd be helpful just to give a quick overview of the Chapter 61 review, removal process, just because I think we don't do it enough to
Right.
to have it all down perfect. Mary, how well do you know the process?
I don't know it very well at all.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Like I know a little bit around the edges, and there you go.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
same here. Actually, I would have questions. Brenda, do you want to share the screen if you want to bring that up, or where?
I don't really have anything to share
Okay.
on the screen, and if I do, I'll do that.
Okay.
But the Chapter 61 program includes Chapter 61, 61A, and 61B. 61 is forestry, 61A is agriculture, 61B is general open space. And what the program is a program for private landowners to get a statutorily designated property tax reduction if their property is in one of those uses. They can enroll in one of those programs. And if it's in forestry, they can get up to a 95% reduction in their property taxes if they meet basic criteria as a forestry program parcel. If it's 5 acres or more, they can enroll in either Chapter 61 61A agriculture or 61B open space. And in those instances, it's usually about a 75% property tax reduction for keeping the property in those uses, meeting the basic criteria of those programs. So the properties enrolled are private properties that have substantially reduced property taxes, which obviously benefits the landowner. The town gets the benefit of the continued use in those things from an open space perspective, either forestry, agriculture, or general open space. But the town also gets a right of first refusal over those parcels should those parcels ever be converted into another use. Right of first refusal is a 120-day period from the time the town gets notified to act on that right of first refusal. So they can actually purchase the property to maintain the property in that current open space, or forestry or agriculture. In this case, this parcel is enrolled in Chapter 61B. So it's an open space, and uniquely, it doesn't happen very often, but this notice of withdrawal was not accompanied with a bona fide purchase and sale agreement. Oftentimes, what we get from a Chapter 61 withdrawal notice is notice that the landowner intends to convert the property, and they have a purchase and sale agreement that's associated with it, that the town would then have to essentially step into the shoes of the purchaser and buy the property at that designated price. In this instance, because there is no, it's simply a conversion of use and a notice that the town has its right of first refusal. That means in order to purchase this property, we would have to have the property appraised to understand what the purchase price would be, and the appraisal would set the purchase price. Any questions so far on that, Primer?
No, I think that's pretty straightforward for me.
Okay, great. So on this property, it's a 12.85 acre parcel that's being withdrawn. And if you look at the plan, the parcel is much bigger than that and is divided into several different lots. The larger parcel has frontage on Sunny Hill Road and frontage on Leominster
Leominster
Road.
Road, yeah.
And the bulk of the acreage is contained in a very large wetland complex that is part of the headwaters to Catacoonamog Brook. Catacoonamog Brook, of course, flows downstream, down towards Lancaster Ave, crosses Lancaster Ave, goes through the area of the water supply
district.
lands. We have
Yeah.
the water district lands where the wellheads are, and ultimately is one of the main tributaries into Lake Shirley. So the parcel's broken into 4 different tracts. The landowners are reserving out all of the Sunny Hill Road frontage, 5.6 something acres, 6.4 I think acres. And they're also reserving another 11 point something acres of the wetland to remain in Chapter 61B. But this parcel 4 includes some isolated uplands on basically a hillside below Sunny Hill Road, and then a pretty substantial portion of the wetlands, including all the road frontage on Leominster Road. And all of that frontage is sopping wet. If you're familiar with where this parcel is, it's a big beaver wetland, and the road frontage there is all very, very, very wet. So the interesting thing, and to me, it's maybe just an interesting thing, is that, you know, even though they're claiming that this could be 5 house lots, because they intend to utilize this parcel with the Sunny Hill Road lands, the Sunny Hill Road lands are not part of the transaction that would be contemplated by the town. And therefore, we would be appraising only the 12.85 acres, completely isolated, with its only its frontage on Leominster Road, which is probably not developable. And so the town could conceivably acquire 12.85 acres at backland values, because the appraisal would likely look at it that way, because it's probably not developable. You know, technically, could they get a wetland crossing, a limited wetland crossing for driveways? Talking with Mike Toohill prior to this meeting to get his sense of that. As a wetlands guy, he said, yeah, technically the Wetlands Protection Act would allow for that, but they would have to get back, you know, many hundreds of feet before they got to actual developable land where that driveway would have to go. Just the cost of doing that would be rather prohibitive. And there's a limited amount of frontage there on Leominster Road, 464 feet of frontage. And so how many lots could that actually be based on local zoning there? With all the other limitations with wetlands crossings, et cetera. So it's potentially a really interesting opportunity. And that's where I kind of started my analysis. And then I went back to our open space acquisition criteria to see, you know, because I know it's an important wetland, it's a part of the Catacoonamog Brook headwaters. So I was thinking, well, maybe this is something we should really be considering strongly. And as you remember, the open space acquisition criteria, we identify 6 different sort of resource values. And the recommendation is that any acquisition considered by the town should hit at least 3 of those things. So when I looked at it, you know, is the parcel greater than or equal to 50 acres? Obviously, no. Does it contain important wildlife habitat? I think it's a very interesting wetland complex. It is the headwaters of Catacoonamog Brook, which is a designated cold water fishery. But there are no rare species and there are no state listed habitats. So does it have important wildlife habitat? I would put that in a maybe category, but if I was forced to answer it, I'd probably say no. Does it provide public access for recreation? It's mostly wetland, and you can't really get to the upland portion of it. So probably the answer is no. Does it have important scenic resources? This one I think is a clear yes. Its road frontage is on Leominster Road, which is a designated scenic road in the town of Lunenburg. and it's within a polygon identified by a state plan designated as a noteworthy scenic landscape. So I think it does kind of check the box on the scenic landscapes. Is it contiguous to other open space? No. And does it support local agricultural viability? Clearly no. So it hits maybe 1.5 of those 6 categories.
It is adjacent to other town land, Brandon. Adjacency I know can be subjective, but just right across the way is the Woodruff property. It's right across, directly across the road.
Yep. Mike and I talked about that a bit as well. So maybe it's 2.5 if you want to count across the road as contiguous.
Mm-hmm.
Intuitively, I don't consider that contiguous. That's just my perspective. And the Woodruff property, though it is undeveloped, it is held as general municipal land. It's not designated conservation land. So so even though it is town-owned open space, it's not protected as such. So I would
continue to the end of your thought.
I would simply just I would, in my mind, again, I discount that a little bit. You know, we could make that change. Certainly the town could decide to change the Woodruff property, and that's a larger discussion that's that we should have at some point. But I do think that the way my mind works on it anyway is if it's not sharing an actual property boundary and it's not designated conservation land, then or otherwise open space, you know, designated open space, then it's a little bit discounted in my mind.
Okay. Mary, do you have any thoughts, questions that you want to share?
Yeah, I do. And Brandon is the one who helped me kind of find that criteria, right, and understand how some of that open space plan kind of worked, right, with the resource mapping and whatnot. So I really appreciate that. This came up at the Conservation Commission. I don't know if it was the last meeting or the meeting before. It all kind of blurs together after a bit. But so I did go and look up that criteria and actually shared it out with my fellow commissioners. The criteria says adjacent to other town land. It doesn't say adjacent to conservation land. Yeah, and kind of I had not picked up on the scenic view piece of it. You're absolutely correct. This is not rated by the state as you know, endangered animal habitat, right? But it's wetland, right? And I feel like wetlands, and particularly wetlands in our tributaries, major tributaries that feed our lakes, are important. And that when we have opportunities to pick those up and try to patchwork those together over time, that those are opportunities we should try to take advantage of, you know, given the limited resources that we have in terms of funding and whatnot. But in my mind, I would definitely want to consider this. Having the Woodruff property across the way, you certainly are not going to, again, in my mind, you're certainly not ever going to put parking in the Woodruff area and encourage people to walk across Leominster Road. You know, that's a really busy road. There's some curves and intersections there. My observation is that as people come out of the center of town and go down there, they tend to accelerate down that hill. So I don't think we would ever be encouraging people to walk across that road. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of, there's a beaver dam down there. And, you know, if you look at the wetland map, you kind of go, oh, well, it looks like there's a little bit of space that maybe you could put in a 2-car parking something. But in reality, yeah, I think that would be almost impossible to do. So I don't know how accessible it would be to people, but there's a lot of protection on Catacoudamog. So coming into the water district, we have some agricultural protected lands just south of that. The Violets have their parcels straddling Lancaster Road in agricultural protection. You know, and I overlooked the water district. The water district is there abutting them on the eastern side of Lancaster. That abuts the Woodruff property, right? So that would allow us to have a pretty extensive, you know, add on to this greenway of protection that we have on Catacoudamong, which I think, you know, maybe is worth consideration. And in my looking at the looking at this, I would have said it was 2, except for the scenic views. So in my mind, it kind of hits 3. But I also am very much aware that we have limited funding, and there may be other parcels that are higher in priority that hit more of these that maybe we would want to spend limited resources on.
All right, thank you, Mary. So my comments, if I will, you know, I'm getting more and more familiar with our open space document, and it's 200 pages. So forgive me if I haven't really memorized everything as well as Mary seems to have had, since I was one of the authors. But you know, after our open space meeting that we had, where Sharon Jordan came and spoke about it, I started looking around a little bit. And when I looked at the criterias, I think that's great guideline for creating that document. But one thing that it's been in my mind quite a bit since that meeting, and is, you know, it's great that we have those criterias, but I don't think we should limit ourselves to those criterias in any discussions. We can say, you know, this doesn't apply, but here are the other criteria that we think it should apply in this case. And maybe next time around, our criteria for our open space, it will be much larger, because a few different things are happening. One is, I think number of parcels in Lunenburg that are going to be over 50 acres are going to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle just with time. And right along that, I also think about, what is the Lunenburg 20 years from now, 30 years from now? I think, you know, it's great that we have some very large piece of land that's protected for agricultural use and conservation use. But, you know, the rural community that was mostly farms 40 years ago, it's not going to exist in another 20 years. You know, we see more and more development happening. And then I start thinking about, you know, what would open space look, and open space and recreation look in a town like that? And I actually, one thought that I had was, when the zoning boards of appeal requested a development to add a playground to their, but they didn't really elaborate it very well. And the playground is more like a little Tykes structure. And it was difficult for the town to take ownership of that, because it was not safe. But I do have, but we got to start thinking about, what is open space? What kind of open space will be important 30 years from now with that look? And I think Lunenburg will probably be even more developed than it is now. I think we need to start thinking about giving, you know, I don't think we'll be able to build sidewalks everywhere. But I think I love the idea that the zoning board had of adding recreation and open space in some areas. I think Proctor Park was a donation from when, correct if I'm wrong, Brandon, when they developed Cortlandt Circle. I think that it became an open space, that piece behind.
I'm not entirely sure.
Right, but I know when I know the cluster bylaw in Lunenburg required open space, any development larger than so many spaces. And I think those are good visions for us to have for Lunenburg as we become more and more developed. And I'm going to add something else. I know a few people in the Nashville River Watershed Association. I'm really good friends with someone there, and I have gone to some of their events. And one thing they did, when they first started, was they wanted to create a buffer area of protection around the Nashville River. And they have got donations of a lot of land, or just, protection, what they have done all the way into New Hampshire. So this piece of land being attached to a really big, important piece of water for us, a resource. And, and we start thinking about 3 pieces, 5 houses being built there. I just see more, water going in there, and versus, you're going to build 3 houses. Now you're going to change the topography of the land. You might get more running stormwater going into the brook. So I think there is a lot of value in preserving and kind of like creating a buffer protection around these water resources that we have, because it's not just water resources, is also, that's, it's a combination of, as the water that it goes, and also the filtration of the water that comes in. So I see a lot of value on that protection, even though it doesn't fit the prescribed 3 of the 6 prescribed items on our open space document. But I think we can identify very important ones outside those. And I think it's the kind of thing that we need to discuss. So then when next time we do our open space document, we can, elaborate more. So I think this is an important discussion. So I see value in protecting this. I see, once you pass this, I'm not sure we'll have the opportunity to protect this piece of land again. So if it's, I mean, I can't measure, but let's see, it's several feet of, so if this is 100, 1, 2, 3, so it seems to be about 500 feet of, at least, of a very important wetlands that we have. The last piece that I'll add is, back in October of last year, we got a notice about parcel 3 on this property. And we passed because that wasn't. And here where comes my questions, probably for Brendan. At that time, they were looking to take it, remove the protection from parcel 3. But since then, it looks like parcel 4 and parcel 2 were sold. Because at the time in October, at that time, a couple with the last name Mackey were the owners of this entire property. Shouldn't we have been triggered when the change in ownership happened for parcel 2 and 4?
I'm not, well, 4 is the parcel before us right now. So I don't know what the current transfer is, or the current ownership of those remaining, those other 2 parcels were. Based on the notice, it sounds like it's all under common ownership based on the notice.
So I pulled our email that we received in October. If you want, I can easily forward it to you. At that time, these parcels were the owner were Mackey.
Yep.
And now it seems to we have new owners on record, MN 122 Maine.
So, I mean, if we passed over our right of first refusal,
well,
it could have transferred. And it certainly, by this notice, I'm reading the notice right now, the name and address. It sounds like all of these parcels are owned by the same. It says parcels 1, 2, 3, and 4 are shown on assessor map 9235. The name and address of the landowner is MN 122 Maine LLC.
Well, my question is, when ownership changes, wouldn't the town get triggered?
No,
No.
it's only when there's a change of use.
Okay, so that was the question. Okay,
Okay, so yeah, so ownership, a change in ownership does not trigger the right of first refusal. It's a change in use is what triggers it.
okay,
And that change, and in fact, if they withdraw the property from chapter 61B, just to withdraw it and not have anything else, as long as they don't change the use within 1 year, they can do that, and the town doesn't get a right of first refusal. So they would have to pay whatever back taxes they owe and everything else, but they could continue to own the property undeveloped for 12 more months before they did any developing, and then the town would not get any right of first refusal. So, but if they withdrew the property, did not give the town right of first refusal, and then issued or went seeking a building permit, within 6 months, then that would trigger the town's right of first refusal. The change of use around, and then there's some bookends, timelines that are built into the rules in the statute. So,
Madam Chairman, may I share my screen?
yes,
This
you should be able now.
I just wanted to, you had made a comment about 500 feet. So this is the Lunenburg assessor's
Well, that
map.
was my thumb measuring, so just
Yeah, no, but I had the map up anyway, so it was easy enough for me to go and do it, right? So it's
right.
roughly 1,800 feet of wetland that
Wow.
we would be protecting with that.
Yep.
And I had also put the gradients onto the 2-foot gradient, so you can really see like how much upland Sunny Hill Road is compared to this. So any type of construction, yard work, anything here, there's a good chance that it would be flowing downhill into this
Right.
wetland. So
but again, remember, parcel 4 is what we're looking at, and it's a narrow strip of that hillside and none of the Sunny
right,
Hill
it's
frontage, right?
like this piece
Yeah,
down in
right.
here, right?
Right.
So it's all back parcel, yeah. But I guess the point I was trying to make, because there's so much elevation change in this area that
Parcel 4
any
actually is pretty big. It starts on the edge about where Mary is, and it goes all the way to Leominster Road.
Right, but
Yeah.
it doesn't extend up the hill to the west to Sunny Hill Road.
no.
Well, it does so see where the line of these other 3 parcels are there? Extends to that point.
Yes, yeah.
So
definitely. Yeah,
if you make a straight line, and they have parcel 3, which would be
Why don't you share what you're looking at?
Oh, brother. I'd like
well, or Brandon's looking at it too, right?
Okay,
So
all right, share please.
I don't happen to have it in front of me. I looked at it the other night
Okay.
and haven't opened it back up.
Well, I like your
Beautiful.
Okay, so
Yeah.
parcel 4. So when we talked in October, it was about parcel 3, removing from protection.
Yeah.
And parcel 4, it starts here. It has all the frontage on Leominster Road.
Right.
And it goes all the way to the end. So the part that they can build, if they remove it, and I don't know, they write here edge of wetlands, and they're going to be building up into pretty tall on the slope, and we can only imagine they'll do a really good job, but it's hard. I'm not as confident.
The thing that I think about, right, as a conservation commissioner, and still very, very new and wet behind the ears as a conservation commissioner, is, as they do formal work, right, and it comes under, RDA and maybe even NOI with the Conservation Commission, we have the ability of making certain they do the erosion controls and everything. But despite our best efforts, and especially in like back parcels and things that don't really have any vantage point from neighbors or from the road, is that people are doing a bunch of stuff, not with ill intent, they just don't know. And
Right.
then there will be erosion and damage to this wetland because people will be doing things and it's all going to flow right downhill. No way to avoid it with that type of elevation change over a short amount of space. So
Right.
that's
So
my thought.
yeah, and and to wrap up my thoughts is, I see a huge value in protecting. I worry about the use, and I was going to give a little bit of insight of the pricing, because when they sold the property, they sold parcel 1, which was not under care. Parcel 3, which is a developable because it was attached and it's not part of the wetland. This parcel he was sold for 95,000, and everything else was sold for 200,000. So I cannot see the assessment to be very large. And this piece of land that's, in itself, it's not developable. And my final comment is, if our request is to get an assessment, is, ultimately the town is the one that makes the decision if we're going to buy or not.
Right.
So I think it's fair to ask for that assessment, is within our rights. Last comment about this is the October note mentioned they were going to build 3 houses. We're up to 5 now. And I'm sorry, it's just more houses with more water going towards
I
the
agree.
river.
Erosion going towards the
And the
wetland.
erosion, the nutrient loading,
Mhm.
everything else that goes along with lawns.
The beautiful
and
green grass. Yep.
pesticides and herbicides and all
Oh,
that stuff.
mm.
And yeah, I agree 100%. The concern I have, and this kind of goes back to, I think Mary had said, limited town resources, and I'll add to the limited town resources piece. If we go forward with this and we have the property appraised, just knowing, and if the town Board of Selectmen agrees to do that, because ultimately it's their decision. But we could, first of all, we could use funding out of our open space fund that we have, that small fund that we got from the what was the lettuce place up on the hill by the Walmart there. We got $10,000 or
Yep.
whatever. So we do have some funding that we could bring to bear. So it wouldn't necessarily cost the town anything out of taxpayer funds. It could come out of that open space fund that was a donation. So we could certainly have that appraisal. And if that appraisal comes in, and let's say it comes in at, backland prices, $5,000 an acre for backland, times, just call it 12 for round numbers, is $60,000. Boy, don't we feel good about that? $60,000, 12 acres, that's really short money. Do you think that this landowner would say, okay, we'll take our $60,000, thank you very much, when they think they have 5 house lots, when house lots are going for 120 a pop right now in Lunenburg? Of course not. That landowner thinks they're going to get 10 times the value. 120 times 5 is 600,000. They think they're going to get 10 times the value that we're offering them by developing this. If we try to exercise our right of first refusal, even if we do it by the books, I guarantee you we're ending up in court.
well, but we don't have to make the case for them, right?
Yeah.
But they may also come back to us and say, just like it happened, there was a property that we exchanged recently. It was 2 town meetings ago. We exchanged town land for more land by the Malpas River. By not just saying no, by engaging, they're going to have to come to us and engage with us.
Yeah.
And I think that's a valuable place to be. I think just saying, oh, too bad, nothing. If we play by the book, they're still going to come back. Yeah, come, and we're going to be talking, and we're always going to be advocating for open space, for preservation of wetlands, and that's when you start talking. So that property, and I do believe it was 2 or 3 town meetings ago, that we protected the head of Malpas
Yeah.
by giving up. So I think that conversation is worth happening.
Yeah.
So that's my thought. And it'll be interesting if we can make I had told Mike Toohill that based on our conversation, I'll draft an email to Heather Lemieux. If we have, can we get an assessment? So we can see if it's worth it or not. We're not ready to make that decision. I think
Do we have
that's
to vote? I mean, is that something that needs to come to?
No,
as a
because
vote?
we're not saying to keep it. We're just saying, can we get an assessment?
Okay.
And just the minutes will reflect appraisal, not assessment.
Oh, appraisal, not assessment. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the right terminology. But yeah, so we're not in a place here where we can vote to recommend doing that. And certainly we're not in a place here to vote to authorize use of that open space fund for those purposes. So
No, I think it's just asking Heather, the commission, 3 members of the commission spoke, and before we make a recommendation, we would like to get an assessment. And that way we'll have more information for our next meeting. It's requesting information to do our due diligence in order to make our vote next, or in our next meeting.
yeah. I hear what you're and agree with the basic tenet of what you're suggesting, where I'm running into my pragmatism is something that I'm having a hard time with here. Is I feel like this is one where, well, I can find a way to justify it and rationalize it. 6 ways to Sunday, actually. The pragmatic side of me says that we'll spend a lot of time chasing our tails on this, dragging a landowner along for the ride. And ultimately be in a place that I'm not sure that the town's going to get there, that this is going to be as compelling as we need it to be to win the day, to get the town to spend whatever it ends up being to protect this parcel. Regardless of the arguments we've made tonight, I try to get, the way my mind says, okay, we get to the end of the road here and we're standing in front of town meeting. What's town meeting going to say? And I don't know that we have enough there to win the day. And what I worry about is do we want to do that and have that track record with voters at town meeting? And do we want to have that track record with other Chapter 61 owners in town that may have other parcels that are of very high value and do hit 5 or 6 of those criteria, and is where we want to put our chips on the table? And because as a volunteer group, because the Board of Selectmen, well, they're a busy group and they're not going to run with this, and this is going to be something we would have to run with. And is this where we want to spend our chips? And that's when I start saying, okay, sometimes you got to say no, and
Right.
and not, and not, even though you can justify it, because I never met a piece of land I didn't like. As a conservationist, that's one of the hardest things I ever have to do is tell myself, not this one, because there are other more important ones where we're going to have to bring the full weight of our capabilities to bear. And I just don't, the town does not have a lot of appetite for spending money on this stuff. They just don't. And so it has to be super compelling.
I don't disagree, Brandon. I hear what you're calling pragmatism. I like to say that I always go down swinging. I see a lot of value for a resource, as what the resource here is, what we're trying to protect. And I think, engaging with the landowner, engaging with the new developer is the win. And anything we can do is to move the needle towards that is a win. The win is not necessarily owning the land, but what is it? And I'm not sure. I think it was town manager who wasn't her who did the negotiation with the Malpas. Did that come through here or no? How did that piece of land ended up? I thought that was a win, and the town didn't spend money on that.
Which one on the Malpas are you talking about?
It was 2 meetings ago. They needed more access or road frontage, and they offered to exchange with the town a piece of wetland.
Mhm.
And we gave them this frontage and increase. It was off of
Holman?
it wasn't off
Not
of
Holman,
Holman.
Howard.
No, it was not Howard. It was that that valley road going down Hickory Hills.
Yep.
It was there. And that road has a different name before it becomes Valley Road, I think.
Right.
Oh,
It's off of Gilchrist and Valley.
Gilchrist. Yeah.
I don't share your optimism about that being a win, but okay.
Well, it was it was a conversation to be had, and I think engaging them is conversations to be had, whatever the outcome is. To say no, thank you, you're not part of the conversation. And I love being part of the conversation, even if it's to move things a bit. And I'm not calling out for, like Mary, you said, I don't think that was a win, but that is a possibility, right? and being on the table and having the conversations are a thing to win. But if we don't have a consensus and that we don't feel like we can drop a note, we'll just wait for next month's meeting. That way we can have a vote and move forward with that.
Well, how much time do we have to
we have
act on
120 days, and this was dated May 23rd. So we're in June. We have into August.
Okay.
But that's to act.
That's to act.
So
it'll be great if we can have the assessment.
Yeah,
because that would
120
help
days is not a lot of time. So and I know for me, an appraisal to meet state standards here would probably cost $3,000 to $4,000, maybe more.
I don't. You think so? Because the lake residents were getting appraisals for their abatement.
A market assessment is much different than an appraisal. And
wait, you corrected me to be appraisal and not assessment. Now you're saying assessment.
No, a market. What they largely got were market assessments and not appraisals. And even if they got a full blown appraisal, a residential appraisal, compared to a raw land appraisal that meets state standards, are two different products. And so, with the appraisals we got for like the Saliba parcel and the appraisal we got for the Lane parcel and other things is an important tool that we would need to have, and one that is meets certain standards, but it's also very expensive. So, it would cost several $1,000s, and they typically do. So You know, that's when if we have 10 grand in the bank, is this where we want to spend that money that we could otherwise? So I would be reticent
my-
to
What I was going to ask Heather is, my note to Heather would be, you know, we feel like we need to have that information to make a decision. Can an appraisal be done for us for our next meeting? That would be the note. So let's sit on her court to decide how she's going to proceed with that. I wasn't going to offer money. I don't offer money. And, you know, and you talk about, do we want to put all our chips? Do we want to play our chips? But actually, sometimes when you're playing poker, you do want to play some of your chips to see what your opponents are, where they stand with their cards.
yeah.
But not to get too specific here about poker. But you want to play. If you know, 90% of the time you fold, but sometimes you play to lose to see where you are.
Yeah. Well, Kenny
I'm not
also
playing
said
poker
you gotta
with
know when
you.
to walk away.
What did
Yeah.
you say, Brandon?
I said, well, Kenny Rogers said you also need to know when to walk away and know when to run. So
Yeah,
there we took
Yeah.
the metaphor all the way home.
yeah, we did. All right, so we the note for Heather would be, Heather, we received this information. We would like information on an appraisal so that we can make an informed decision on our next meeting, on our recommendation.
If you're looking for consensus, I just don't. I can't get behind
Sounds
that.
good.
Yeah. So from us, I don't think that note should be on behalf of the committee, since there's only 3 of us here,
Right.
and at least one of us is
Yeah,
not comfortable
I
with
think
that.
I will, my note to her will be, we didn't have a full quorum, and the discussion is there is some value, but we are not ready to make a decision because we didn't have our a quorum. So that's it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and then, you know, if you personally want to suggest that you know, having an appraisal done would help, because without an appraisal, we don't know what the value of the parcel is. And she can take that information back to the board if she wants, and they can decide what they want.
Okay. I will craft something along those lines.
Awesome.
Perfect. The next item on the agenda, Mary, before we move on, do you have any final thoughts on this subject?
No.
No? Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is Zero Shirley Reservoir Lake, aka Stump Cove. It says it's Stump Road, and Parliamentary Road parcels. Continued discussion. Mary and I actually visited both parcels this past month, and it was awesome to be there with a conservation person. Mary, do you want to start? I like going off of you. You know a lot. You know a lot more about conservation than I do.
Okay. Yeah. So we went down and walked both parcels that are on Lake Shirley. And I'm a graphical person, so I tend to like to you know, do the pictures. And I particularly love maps. So here we go, maps. So we were down at 0 Reservoir Road, which I think is this parcel right here.
Yep.
Yeah, right here, which is, you know, it's pretty big, right? It comes all the way down Stump Cove, wraps all the way back up to here, right where there's a narrowing in the, I didn't realize there were so many houses up there. We can only see this one from where we were standing right here, but we did walk all the way around. And you know, it's a really desirable piece of property there, but you know, there's a lot of vegetation in this cove. I don't think I want to do visual with that one. I think I want to do, one of the things I've noticed with these maps is that if you do the satellite, then you have to back all the way out of it to get back into the into the parcel information. So here's the same view, right? And with winter satellite from a little bit ago, but you can see, you get a pretty good view of this guy. Yeah, so we did see there were people parked along the road up here already who were doing, it looks like hand launching through the reeds here. There was a lot of water vegetation throughout this cove. A lot of reeds down in this area, but this, we walked up this kind of cart path and down to the water in a lot of areas, and it's beautiful. There's a lot of real estate there to do something with. There's already kind of it doesn't look like it's been paved. It does look like at some point in time somebody's put or stored regrind over here. There's some parking area still here. There are paved areas up in here and here. Actually, this is 2021, but it looked to me like there was just a solid paved area here now, right? Because I think what we saw was somebody had a cord of wood here. There were two empty boat trailers, one that still had a boat on it. This is all on town land. So there's already parking existing. So looked great. We did walk back this area a little bit. We had to kind of climb through these and around these bushes a little bit to get into here. It's interesting. These folks are clearly accessing their pier, right? It doesn't even look like it's that docks on their parcel, but there's clearly a lot of foot traffic going back and forth here as well.
Don't put a ton of stock in these parcel lines here, just for the record. The assessor lines here are a little wonky, and I don't know if you remember from prior conversations, but that what you call the cart path on the opposite side on the main part of the road there, that's actually, that was an old town road.
Oh, okay.
That they when they built the reservoir, flooded, because you see the road went across where across Fire Road 12. Fire Road 12 didn't exist at the time, and it went off and now is go into the lake.
Okay, yeah, that explains that weird little finger of the parcel.
Yep. So I'm not, and this is one of the questions we had when we were investigating Stump Cove. Again, the title issue at Stump Cove is terrible. And did the town ever formally abandon that old road? Because if you look at the old town maps, you can actually see that road. You can see that fork in the road and everything. It was a town road at one time, but did the town formally abandon that road with a vote of town meeting? When did they do that? And did if they formally abandoned it, then the road would have reverted back to the ownership of whoever the owners were on either side of that at the time. So if it was formally abandoned, then that little strip that shows as road on the south side that you're saying that the people have their dock on town property may not be town property after all, if it was formally.
Yeah, good to know.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Title did
no, that's really good to know, and it's good context to have on this, because this is the only reference that I had to go by, right? Is the Massachusetts GIS is what we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
Anything else that you wanted to add, Anna?
Yeah. So one thing we talked about it when we were there is, at the time we were there was nice, easy access to water where you couldn't easily do a hand launch with a kayak or a canoe. But, lily pads were starting to come up. It was not clear how accessible that is. Probably comes, August. And once the weeds come up, I from what I've seen, the rest of the year is gone. So we actually talked about maybe visiting a couple times, and now during the summer and late in the summer, and capture an image to see if, to see how accessible it truly is.
Yeah.
So, because if it's not, if our goal is to do, a hand lunch, a small vessel lunch, and that for town residents, if it's not doable, I have tried to canoe over lily pads. It's not easy.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so we gotta, if that's the goal, but it's not achievable comes the end of June, it's, that's not a good property for that. So I think it's, keep gathering information. I'll probably reach out to Mary again comes beginning of July, and let's go take another walk and take a couple more pictures. So that was my thought. And it would be great if town council can figure the title issue with this property.
And I know when I talked to Mike, he said he's reached back to town council and still has gotten no further information from town council. So he's going to be following up with them again. So.
Right. Yeah. When I write my note to Heather, I'm supposed to ask him about it.
Yeah.
So
before you continue to Parmenter, can I just share my screen briefly and show you a little something I think you might find interesting? I'm gonna share. This. So this is the 1830.
I love that map
of Lunenburg. And so here's Catacoonamog Pond, which is Lake Shirley. Now, after they dammed it. But here you see this intersections of roads here. This is that road. That
way
got discontinued.
cool.
This is the road that used to exist that no longer exists.
Oh my goodness, that is so. I will be able to bore so many friends with that piece of trivia. I love it.
So that's the origin of some of those roads in there. And there was a layout from the 1950s when they redid Reservoir Road. They laid out a new road, and I think Lake Shirley way predates that, right? They built up Lake Shirley for industrial purposes in the late 1800s, if I remember right. So, but they did do a new layout of Reservoir Road in the 50s. And if we could just get our hands on that plan, which we haven't been able to locate at the DPW or recorded, that would have a lot of information there that would probably help resolve a lot of this title issue with this parcel, because they were so much closer to the prior ownership at that point in time, 70 years ago. So
wow.
Anyway, I'll stop sharing.
That was really cool. Yeah. Yeah, so I think that was all our observations of that parcel, right, Mary?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then we went down to Parmenter Road. Mary, do you have pictures, or you don't?
I don't have them. I have them on my phone, and I don't have a really easy way of getting them from my phone to display. Do you have them in an easy way to display?
I don't. I did not think. Well, maybe. Well, if you want to start talking, I might be able to bring them up.
Okay.
If you want to.
Fine. So we'll go over here and we'll look at the Parmenter Road parcel. And so we walked on this parcel. This area has changed quite a bit. Property lines went away. Okay, this area right here has changed quite a bit. The shed's no longer here. This is no longer here. There is a shed that's immediately adjacent to the garage here on this parcel, and then there is a fence that extends from the garage all the way down to this area. So we walked down here. It is steep, as everyone said. It's heavily wooded. There are a lot of obvious places where people have been using motorized whatevers to get down to the water's edge. There's damage to the slope. There's erosion that's happening down there. So there's a lot of issues. There's reasons why there would be an improvement if we managed access in that area, if the town elected to manage access in that area. From what we could see, right, it looks like there's been a steady flow. You know, all the vegetation is tamped down, the trees are cleared out and whatnot in this area with people coming down, and it looks like maybe launching boats in this area. There were also coming down, like in this sort of general vicinity, double tracks, like from a side-by-side or an ATV or a Jeep or something coming down here. And so there were some erosion problems down in this area as well. You can see definitely the earth is shifting. We did note there was approximately, you know, in this corner, either just immediately here, I think it's actually, you know, on this side, a storm drain, and it looks like an outlet down in this area. And I've sent that off to, those photos off to the Storm Water Commission, because where the grate comes out, it looks like there could be some improvement, you know, additional resources for settling of solids and whatnot as it outflows and before it's outflowing into Lake Shirley. So that's what I observed. Anna, you want to add anything to that?
No, I was going to ask you if you heard anything about the erosion control on that space, because I think the construction was done like last, and it's still, you know, dirt exposed, and the erosion control stuff is there.
You know, I forgot to ask about that. I will send a note off to our administrator.
Okay. And I was able to get some of our pictures here. Give me one quick second. And I will share my screen now that I more or less organized this. Oh, I'm impressed how quickly I was able to organize a photo album. Oh. So, let me, is everything here? So this is the drainage that that Mary talked about it. It doesn't look like it looks just, it comes from the street and goes straight into the pond, into the lake, right, Mary? We couldn't figure out.
There were a few rocks and stuff, but it doesn't really look like there's a containment area for, you know, solids to precipitate out or anything like that. And it does look like even those rocks have been moved out of the way in the progression to Lake Shirley. It definitely could benefit from some improvements there.
Yeah. So this marks the property line. We believe that this is marking the property line on one neighbor.
But you can see in that if you go back to that one, you can see kind of, it looks like is more obvious when you're there in person. It looks like there are tire tracks right to the edge of the water there, which is why we were thinking maybe people have been launching boats in that area.
more of the
Launching
same.
boats on trailers, or you think they're just dragging canoes down with those little wheeled attachments so that they can launch a canoe or a kayak at that spot?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the area that was worked on last, this must have been, this is Nabutter, and the house was sold last November and they needed to replace the septic. They went to, the previous owner went to the select board. So this area here is town property. The previous septic was on town property and they needed access. As what I remember from the plan was they needed access to install the septic on their property. But the, you know, it hasn't been, the work of remediating the exposed ground has not been done. And now that is this shed that I'm very sure is in town property. Maybe not the whole thing, but a good chunk of it. And this is another view. This is from the other side, and I'm sorry, these pictures. Here, I think what we were trying to see, it's not always easy to see, but you see how vegetation is thicker and denser in some areas, but not in others. It's clearly that the property is being used.
Yeah, when we
Just-
were down there, you actually saw like tire, ruts
Yeah.
and stuff.
So, like you can see a path here. Now, some of this path could be from runoff water that it's coming down, but we felt like it was more of a path of people using.
I felt like it was more that people were using the path, right?
Yeah.
And because it's breaking down and damaging the vegetation, that's causing the runoff and the erosion.
Yeah. And this one, Mary actually highlighted the paths that she saw it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is us, we're staying on the bottom of the property, and there's two paths coming into the property.
Mhm.
Same thing here. And here's that picture without edited. You can see that there
Yep.
is definitely a path. More of that. There's some, this is behind the construction area that still has the erosion plastic there that, hopefully we'll have it remediated. But you can see also at some point it was used for dumping concrete. Hard to know who did it, but it's, it's there.
Yep.
That's a dog run. This is very close to the pond. And this is that neighbor. He stores his kayaks there. I'm assuming, I don't know who owns them, but that's in
Yep.
town property.
Yep.
This is actually pictures from that little, where the street was from Zero Lake Reservoir Road. We were taking pictures like, wow, that looks to be part of the town property.
Well, but based off of the GIS, right?
Right, right. We were just curious, so we documented because we were there. So this was Stump Cove, and that's kind of the picture. You can see that we have weeds already growing, and some parts was accessible, but most of the area was surrounded by those cattails, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the wood that's being stored on what looks to be town property, and the 2 empty trailers and 1 covered. I think that's another picture from Mary.
Yeah,
And
that's
this
back
is
to Parmenter.
that's back to Parmenter. So this is on the road looking down onto the property. And I think that's all. And this is the drainage that's on the street that we think it's probably causing, is the one that's going straight into the lake.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's all we got. And you can see it here going straight. This is the drain pipe going straight into the lake.
There's not a lot stopping it from flowing right into the lake.
Yeah. And I doubt it was designed to.
Right.
When this was built, it was a storm drain just to get rid of water off the road, and they weren't concerned about those things.
Oh, so, okay, when do you think it was, I'm gonna stop sharing now.
Uh,
When do
We
you
would,
think?
I know one of the abutters shared the layout plans for Parmenter Road, but who knows when that was built,
Okay.
when that road was actually built, but.
Yeah, so so Parmenter Road, I think my conclusion, and I'll let Mary speak to hers, was, it's a tighter space. It does have a slope. But it is being used. It's not being used to the best in a way that's the best for the property, the best for the lake. That drainage is there. I think that there's good. So we see is because, and this is a point I made on our last meeting, which was, there is currently use, and if we don't improve it, people are going to continue to use it, not in the best way, and you're going to get stormwater running into the property. Paths that are not the best location, and I think that's a disservice for the health of the lake, for everything. I mean, I don't think residents of the lake would want this pipe there, so I think there's a lot of opportunities there. Is it the best? I don't know. But is there going to be our only option if we can't figure out what happens with Stump Cove? But there is potential. It may not be the potential with if we had a lot of space, but there is some potential for improving. There are trees that definitely look like they're going to fall into the lake. I don't know if that's what they would like to have. I'm not an architect, but I think someone with a vision could definitely do something that would improve the property and would improve the conditions on the lot. Mary, what are your thoughts? Do you have a?
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly it's being used by people, certainly not to the benefit of all of Lunenburg. And because it's unmanaged use, there's damage. I mean, in my own opinion, there's damage that's happened to the property because it's unmanaged use. I think there would be some benefit to managing the use and the access there. Certainly some opportunities should the town and should the park commission have the opportunity to manage the use. There's also some opportunities for improvement in terms of bringing the storm drain there into more current kind of design strategy, limiting access so that we don't have the erosion that's currently happening. So I could see that there would be a lot of advantages. If I were going to had to choose one over the other, Reservoir Road offers a lot of opportunity in terms of, the frontage on the lake, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming up from Stump Cove, lake floor, right? So it's much nicer access over at Parmenter just from the lake itself. But again, it seems like Parmenter's immediately, accessible, even if just in a limited way, and the Reservoir Road one may take some time to clear up just due to the tidal issues.
Yeah. Okay. Brendan, do you have any other comments, questions?
No, I visited the property quite some time ago. It was good to see new pictures of it. The paths, I think, are pretty interesting evidence of the parcel's use, and it's probably the local residents utilizing the parcel to launch their canoes and kayaks there because it's convenient, and that's how those paths are getting worn down, or folks walking their dogs to get down to the water's edge so that they can have a swim or what have you. So it's something that's probably used largely by the local residents, and maybe a person or two in town that might know that it's there and it's town-owned property and they're going and utilizing it. But it makes sense to me that it's probably mostly used by the local residents, and so it's helpful to see those pictures for sure. But your characterization of both parcels is has been my experience with both of them as well. So It's in keeping with how I understand those lands to be.
All right. Next item on the agenda was upcoming town master plan process. There, the town hired 3 engineering companies, consulting companies that will be leading that. There is a representative from conservation, right, Mary? I believe there is one.
You probably know better than me.
I don't
'Cause
know.
Clearly, that's got me stumped. So
Okay. I know there is a parks representative. And I actually met with one of the engineers. They were interviewing department heads, but because Chris, our facilities manager, is sort of the parks department head, Adam Burney suggested they would meet with me. So I met with them regarding park and recreation, and we talked a little bit about, because they're designing a plan for 20 years from now, the next 10, 20 years. So we talked about the open space. I shared my thoughts regarding the town is now what the town was 20 years ago, and where I think the town will likely be in 20 years. And they took a lot of notes, and tomorrow is a meeting, is the kickoff. It'll be great if residents will show up, because and come to that, and come to the meeting and participate, because I think hopefully it will create a good draft about what the town will look like, what do we want for the town, and they'll tell us the path to get there. So I invite everybody to come.
So Anna, you said there were 3 firms that were being considered. They've selected one?
No, they hired all 3.
Oh,
Yeah, so they're going to work as part of a group. I think there is a leading one. I think they have different specialties. But they hired all 3 for a total of $150,000. I think we
Wow.
voted that. I don't know which town meeting we voted that, but yes, we did.
didn't realize they were hiring 3 different firms to do that.
Yes, somehow they landed with that, which I think is interesting, because I think it's very broad project, and it makes sense, because it will be very difficult to have one specialty cover everything that needs to be covered. And they'll be looking into everything: infrastructure, suggestion for infrastructure, our open space plan, and everything. So it's a process that's worth engaging. So that's all I have for that. Any other comments on this item? No. All right. Any committee comments or concerns?
I have a comment from the Conservation Commission.
Yes.
Announcement, really. You guys may recall that I submitted a Mass Trails grant at the end of January to allow the to do the engineering work, basically fund the engineering work to add a more robust parking area at Table Rock, to add a parking area at Reno. There's currently 0 at the Reno property, and then to improve parking and wildlife viewing platform access at the Harold Harley Wildlife area of the Cowdrey. And I am delighted to let you know that that grant was awarded. I just got the letter today. So
congratulations.
Yeah. So, I don't think we're going to be able to start any work, until the end of the year. My previous grant experience is that the machine works very slowly, so we won't have an executed grant contract most likely until December timeframe, but still something to look forward to. And I think it was sort of kind of around $70,000 worth of engineering work that we anticipate needing. So
that's wonderful, Mary.
Yeah.
That's a big number. I don't know if they award much more than that for a town our size, but that's wonderful. You must have done a great job.
Yeah, that's fantastic news. Congratulations.
Thanks. I was pleased, and I'm looking forward to working, with the engineering firms and actually starting to see the progress. The goal with that, of course, is to get plans generated so that we can go through the various approval processes, with boards and other, agencies that have authority over the various resources in those areas, and then set ourselves up for, maybe the next 10 years of doing follow-on grant submittals to actually implement, those plans.
Is this a matching fund or no? It was unattached to matching funds.
Yeah, there is matching that has to go with this. So it's 80% funded with a 20% match required.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, pretty big. Good, nice job.
Mhm. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. The next item on the agenda is our meeting schedule, which is July 12th and August 9th. For the people that are here, do we have any conflicts with those? Mike said that he'll be able to be here on July 12th.
I think the August 9th, I'm away. Let me just
Okay.
double check. Yes, I am away on August 9th, so I will not be present for that meeting.
Okay. That's good. And
Currently have conflicts for either of those dates.
perfect. Keep it that way, okay, Mary?
Oh, that's no fun, Anna.
The other thing that Mike and I talked about is if the commission would like to have a reconfiguration of the members, he said he would take the helm as a chair if nobody has an objection or if no one else wants. And but that's something we discussed to maybe be on this agenda. And I said, well, it's better if you're there so we could throw your name on the right. He's like, okay, fair enough. But I'll extend the vice chair is actually pretty easy because you're just running meetings. I do not want a Brendan's job. But
I have to say I'm happy where I'm at. My conservation commissioners seem to have a mind to perhaps motion for me to take a more substantial role than just vice chair. And I think my dance card is going to be very full as I, grow the skill set, because it's definitely a growth area for me. So I'm happy where I'm at.
okay. Well, I was thinking of you for vice chair, Mary. Like I'm the parks chair, I'm the vice chair here. Maybe next round is you're the chair of the conservation, vice chair here.
It's very flattering, but I just need to get my sea legs when it comes to whatever the Conservation Commission needs me to do next.
Yeah.
So let me dwell there a little bit and get comfortable first. We don't want all my fur to fall out.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. But that will likely be something that will be in the agenda. I will drop the note to Heather as discussed, and I will ask her about if she can inquire town council about the 0 Shirley Reservoir Road lot. And I think Mike had said that he was going to try to meet with town council on the June office hours. And that's all I have. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I just want to recommend that we acknowledge that we have a public comment piece on the agenda. All of the public seems to have
Right.
left the meeting.
I think it was our map discussions, Brandon. Do you think it was our maps that chase everybody? I hope not. I like maps.
Yeah, I don't know. And
Thank you, Brandon.
Yep.
Yeah. Just as when I expected people to stay to have the public comment, they left. So no public. And with Zoom, you get to see if people are here or not. So I kind of skipped that, but I appreciate that. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right. All in favor, Brendan?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I for myself. It was lovely to see you all and talk with you. Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.